Thank you for joining us for the North Texas Coerced Debt Pilot Advocate Training. Today, I'm going to cover Chapter 521 orders and how we got here. So first, my name is Brittany Hightower. I'm a supervising attorney over the program-wide units at Lone Star Legal Aid. I lead our team that serves survivors of sexual violence, and we cover a variety of needs, including protective orders, divorces, custody, evictions, Title IX complaints, debt collection, and more. Prior to this, I served as a senior staff attorney here at Lone Star Legal Aid. I've also been an assistant attorney general for the Office of Attorney General of Texas. I was an assistant county attorney for Williamson County Attorney's Office and a senior staff attorney for Texas Advocacy Project. So first, prior to 2019, victims of coerced debt were not considered victims of identity theft. This meant that they could not access the existing identity theft protections that already existed under federal and state law. So first, there's the Federal Fair Credit Reporting Act that already allowed victims of identity theft to dispute and block debts that were showing up either on their credit report or with creditors due to identity theft. Chapter 521 of the Texas Business and Commerce Code also allowed victims of identity theft to go to court and get an order that declared them a victim of identity theft. They could then use this order to block and dispute debts using the Federal Fair Credit Reporting Act. The brilliant people that came before me found that the perfect legislative solution would be, let's expand the definition of identity theft under Texas law to include coerced debt. In 2019, the legislature added the term effective consent to the definition of identity theft under the Texas Penal Code. Now it is a crime to obtain, possess, transfer, or use another person's identifying information with the intent to harm or defraud someone without their consent or their effective consent. Prior to the 2019 change, even so-called consent that was obtained by force or coercion was still considered sufficient consent for that not to be identity theft. So the 2019 change added this magical word, effective consent. Thankfully, this was a pretty easy change because we already had the term effective consent defined in the Texas Penal Code. Essentially, this law defines what effective consent is not. Specifically, consent is not effective if it's induced by force, threat, or fraud. By the next legislative session in 2021, we knew we still had a problem. Because the expanded definition of identity theft only existed in criminal law, survivors were still required to file a police report before they could utilize any of the existing identity theft protections. For many reasons, survivors are often reluctant to report crimes to law enforcement. Moreover, because the change in the law was so new, many police agencies did not know about this expanded definition and therefore would not take police reports. Again, the brilliant people that came before me came up with another legislative solution. Let's expand the definition of identity theft under civil law. This would enable survivors to be able to go to court and obtain a court order declaring themselves a victim of identity theft without having to file that police report. So this is what Chapter 521 of the Texas Business and Commerce Code is. We added the definition, or we as in the Texas legislature, added the definition of effective consent to the civil law, to this law as well. So looking at the two laws side by side, or the two legislative changes side by side, we can see that in 2019, the change expanded the definition of identity theft under the criminal law, and that allowed victims of coerced debt to both seek prosecution and utilize existing identity theft protections so long as they filed a police report. The 2021 change expanded the definition of identity theft under Texas civil law, which opened up those identity theft protections to survivors who, for whatever reason, were not able to file a police report. So this is the Chapter 521 statute. It essentially says that a person who has been injured by a violation of this, basically if somebody's been a victim of identity theft as defined by that 2021 change, can go to a district court and obtain an order that declares them a person who's been a victim of identity theft. And this is regardless of whether or not the person is able to identify the person that has been using their information or stole their identity. So this is a unique legal remedy. What exactly is a Chapter 521 order? As I keep saying, or as I've said a little bit, it's essentially just a court order that's signed by a judge that officially declares that that person, that survivor, is a victim of identity theft. Well, why does it matter? When trying to block and dispute debts with the big three credit bureaus or financial companies like Chase or Citibank, survivors are often not taken seriously. The financial companies may dismiss their identity theft claims because the survivor and abuser were married, had the same address, someone signed for the survivor. An official court order is more powerful evidence that the survivor was a victim of identity theft. The process does involve going to court, but it is relatively simple. The survivor needs to file a lawsuit in a Texas district court. There is no other party, so the survivor is not suing the abuser or the financial institutions or anyone else. This means that the survivor does not need to have anybody personally served like they would in a divorce or a custody case. The survivor goes to court on the scheduled day and testifies as to why particular debts and/or information came about as the result of identity theft. If the court grants the request, the court's going to sign an order that will address specific debts, information, or other issues that resulted from the identity theft. The survivor can then use this order as documentation of the identity theft to remove the information or debts from their credit report, stop creditors from trying to collect the debt, and more. And that's why the Chapter 521 process is so important in helping survivors reclaim some of their ownership over their economic success after being a victim of identity theft. Thank you.